Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kramer. Our guest today is Jason Azevedo, and we are going to talk about manufacturing. Money. Let's talk about money in business. And let's talk about growing businesses, because you've got a pretty successful company, and I'd love to pick your brain a little bit about that as well. So welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Alicia. I'm looking forward to it. This will be fun.
It should be fun. And I have a feeling we're going to get some gold out of you. So let's start by talking a little bit about your business, so our listeners have a frame of reference for what it is that you're doing.
So my business now, for all intents and purposes, is a private equity firm. But what we are at our core and where we started is true manufacturers. We're people that build things and know how to build plants and people, and how do you build those structures in those companies that then create products and create lasting impacts of jobs. So our company goes out, we go and buy legacy US manufacturing companies, usually second, third generation, that are looking for an exit plan, but also want to make sure that their legacy is protected. And how do you pull forward, get into the modern era, but always protect that multi-generational legacy that these companies have? And then that's what we specialize in.
Oh, that's awesome. I know that there is this idea that floats around that you're supposed to take the emotion out of business, but we're human beings. And most people are not creating something only for the money. There is an element of passion. There is an element of it's something that they care about to varying degrees, of course. But when you create something and you've put so much of your life and your energy into that business, there is that element of wanting to pass that on to someone who's going to respect and appreciate that. So when you're doing your thing, I'm curious, like these business owners they're at that point and they're ready to exit, are there some similarities? Like what is their drive? What is their motivation for?
So we see a lot of different businesses. We purposely look at a very similar archetype of an individual. One of the most important things is, what's more important to them, their people or their business? We prefer to buy companies that the people are more important than the business, because usually those are the better businesses, to be simple. Every industry likes to say, oh, we're up in the people business. In manufacturing, it's unlike anything else. It is all about people. I mean, if you think about it, it's about labor and how do you get people and machines to integrate with each other and with the clients. So that's what we're looking for. And when you see that, and when we find it, what we're going to see out of the owners that we're talking to more and more often is they're not so much worried about the final dollar they're going to get for their business. They're worried about, hey, Jeffrey on the dock has worked here for 22 years. Is he going to be okay to finish out his career here? And most of the time, the name on the side of the building is the last name of the person we're buying it from. So protecting the fact that their badge is still going to be there, protecting the people, protecting the business. So I actually purposely look for owners who do not take the emotion out of it. Now, they take the bad emotions out of it. I don't want somebody who every time they're upset, it's time to go hit people. Like, that's not a value. But I want the people that they bleed this place. And to that point, most of the owners actually take ownership in our private equity fund when we buy from them, because we want them still having that passion, that drive for it.
That's awesome. So we talked now a little bit about the types of businesses that you're purchasing these businesses. And now let's talk about the type of people who invest in these types of businesses.
So there are a couple things. If you take like our investor profile, we've got a very wide range. What we're doing is so as we believe and see it, is so important to the fabric of the United States and of the country, that you get a lot of people that just want to make sure that we're protecting our communities, and that this is an investment that allows them to potentially make very good upsides, but also to really protect these communities. Then you get other people who are just, hey, this is a good financial position, let's do it because of that. What we prefer, and we try to always find investors that care about, hey, it's about the people. We made a promise when we started the private equity fund that the way we're actually going to liquidate it for our investors is we're transferring 100% of the ownership to the employees through an ESOP. So you've got to truly believe in the ability to use business tools to not only make significant money, but also to make significant change, or to protect things. And that's really kind of where our investors usually land.
There are people who are listening who may understand the value in this from a financial perspective, right? So this is part of that building wealth for yourself process that we're talking about here. And so, some people are good with they're just the small business owner, and that's all they're ever going to be. And they're kind of happy to just not be working for someone else. That's not really our demographic. That's not really the people who are listening to this. These people are more visionaries. They've got bigger goals, bigger dreams for themselves. They're creating a legacy for themselves and their family. And that does, in many cases, include creating generational wealth, investing intelligently. And we all know with what's going on in our current economy that the stock market isn't necessarily, the most comfortable place to park your money.
Kind of like a roller coaster the last couple of months, but
Right. So can you talk for a little bit about it from the investor perspective? And for those who haven't really ever considered this in terms of being an investment that, should maybe even trump something like their stocks or bonds or whatever. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So, of course, I can't talk about future gains or any of that kind of stuff. There's rules, and there's I can't make any promises there. But what I can say is how we invest. We go after companies that have lots of hard assets. So we're not just buying a belief for a fake piece of paper. We're buying machinery and processes, and we're buying companies that normally have been around 40, 50, 70 years. They've weathered, in the last 2 decades, they've gone through September 11th, the dot-com boom, bust, the crash of 08, the fallout that has been COVID. They're resilient. These are companies that have stood the test of time, and they're solid. In addition to that, instead of us having to go out to a market, the way we decided to transfer the ownership to the employees, which gives us a very good multiple on our exit and gives the investors a good position. But we also have a locked-in buyer, which is wonderful. We know who we're going to be selling to the day we decide to sell because it's there. So there's a lot of things that create a safety net that, hey, this is a true hard asset in our eyes. Different people will look at it differently, but we truly look at it as you've got machines, you've got products. Manufacturing is one of the oldest industries in the world. It's not on that ebb and flow and that cutting edge of, oh, well, it's bang or bust all the time. No, it's consistent. It's solid. You know roughly what the entire industry's margin is going to be. So we see it as a good place to have consistency and growth and what we see as predictability, but that's truly focused on, it's a very hard asset based industry.
Got it. So this is all good. And now I don't know, this question may be difficult for you to answer. But if somebody is listening and they're thinking to themselves, I would love to invest, but I don't know, like, what is that sort of minimum requirement? Can you give people just even like a ballpark of what does that look like when they come to you and you're looking at, them from that capital investor perspective? I mean, what is typically the entry point for someone who wants to support what you're doing, support manufacturing? They get it. It makes sense to them. They're passionate about, the whole thing, right? They get it. So what does that look like?
So first and foremost, a person must be an accredited investor. So that they must hit that threshold. Beyond that, we made our minimum buy-in $100,000. We pulled it as low as we could because we want typical Americans to be able to participate. I mean, that is part of something special here. So we enter there. We talk to people from 100,000 to 25, 30 million. Like the conversations go all over the place. Our hold is no more than 10 years. We locked it out. So within 10 years, we're liquidating the fund. We expect to exit about year 5 to 7, but it's a commitment over that. And then the goal is, of course, to have dividends coming out off of the top of it. So you've got kind of this passive income stream, and then you've got a liquidation event at what our models are estimating at 5 to 7.
Awesome. And so for someone who already is an accredited investor, it's, it's so clear. It's like, oh, that's awesome. I love that. That's perfect. Now, I know there are people who are listening who are like, what is an accredited investor? So let's cover just that real briefly, because that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So accredited investor just means that you're hitting the minimum to invest in non-public securities, basically. The threshold, and my chief investment officer will kill me for this, but the threshold is a household income of $250,000 or more, and or $1 million in investable assets. Believe I got that.
I think that's accurate.
I think I'm 99% positive, but I always want to make sure we never lead someone down the wrong path. That being said,
Google it.
Yeah.
Just to be sure, but I'm pretty sure
beyond that, we also provide a service through when you go to look at investing with us. We'll run you through a questionnaire, make sure that you are accredited. If not, we can tell you where the shortfall was. But we provide that also, so people can go, okay, great. Do I qualify? So it's that, and you can do all of that through our investment site at mrca.net.
Awesome. I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because this is a different conversation than we've had on any previous episodes. We've talked about investing in real estate and, all other different facets of creating wealth for yourself and money mindset and things like that. But I have not had the opportunity to have this discussion about investing in businesses. And as a business-centric podcast, this is an exciting conversation for me, because we can create a lot of success for ourselves in our own businesses. But there's a reason that really, really wealthy, successful people are investing in assets to grow their wealth. And I love when we can sort of bring this to the forefront, because I'll tell you what, I've got a lot of clients who are doing some pretty cool things in their personal businesses. And sometimes I'll use a certain terminology or something about, investing or creating wealth. And it's almost like just blank stare, it's like, what are you talking about? What is that? Because it's not something that most of us growing up in a middle class or less household was ever taught or exposed to. And when you start to, create success for yourself, you've got to learn all of these things.
Yeah. And the other part of that that's super important, especially for the typical business owner, because I started at 15 and started my own company. So I didn't know what debt vehicles were, investment vehicles. I knew you paid taxes. I didn't know how even all that worked. I handed off the paperwork to somebody, they paid my taxes for me. So there's a lot of things that especially business owners, as they start making a profit and they start having money, the natural inclination for most people who started their own business is put it back in my own business. But at some point that becomes, well, my business doesn't need any more money. It's self-sustaining. Like, what do I do with it now? Buy boats and houses? But there are functions of other investments that can actually increase your money. So I'll take us for an example. Because we buy a lot of hard assets and we're able to depreciate them very quickly using Section 179 and other special depreciation methods. That depreciation expense then gets directly pushed to our limited partners, which can help them with capital gains on other things that they've got coming in their world. So finding out how to use these tools, and I always recommend wealth managers are very valuable when you get good ones, and really how to layer the tools so you're getting the most out of that money you're working so hard for. So, and that, to your point, that's why the richest people in the world have investments everywhere. It's not necessarily because they want to own as much farmland as they do or other things like that. It's because these are all tools that they're using to exponentially expand their wealth.
Yes. Okay. This is the perfect time for me to segue into talking to you as the business owner. And I love to always give my guests a little bit of a pre-disclaimer before we start the recording that this question is probably going to get dropped on them at some point. And my audience that's been with me for a while, they're expecting it. So are you willing to share with us one mindset obstacle that you've personally had to overcome in your business in order to get to where you are today?
Of course. So I'll kind of start with a story that leads into this, and it'll explain where it came from. I started my first business at 15 in February of 2007. So right as we get going, we're buying machinery and we're getting our first clients and things are moving. Everyone knows what happens at the end of 2007 and at the beginning of 2008. The market just guts us. And I've got every person around me saying, don't start a business. This is a horrible time. The markets are gone. This is never going to work. And what I didn't realize at the time is every person that's saying it to me has never done it in their lives. And finally, somebody messed up or just completely just didn't think about something. And they go, you're going to lose everything you have. And I snapped out of it because I realized they were explaining to me their fears, not mine. I'm 15 years old. I live with mom and dad. I have $600. Either this person has no clue what's going on, or all they're doing is they're putting on me their problems. And we learned right then and there that in business, you have to take the advice and the knowledge of, first off, of the people that have done it before. But make sure you vet every bad feeling you're having and make sure it's not somebody else's feeling. Because people love to pick out, especially early entrepreneurs. And they will convince you of every reason why they never did it. And somehow will convince you it's your feeling. And you wait for that moment to snap you out of it. You're going to lose everything. I don't have anything. What are you talking about? Moment. And that will get you a long way in business because you start realizing that if you follow your heart, your vision, your ideas, you get a heck of a lot further than if you follow the naysayers.
I love that. And I call it challenging our beliefs. And we can feel when something feels off. There's this moment where you have this awareness. Wait a second, like my heart is calling me to do this thing. And yet this stuff in my mind is saying, I can't, it won't work. Look at every other time that it didn't work, all the things that have been said to you. Sometimes you don't even remember the person who planted that seed in your mind, but it's that ability to look at those things honestly and objectively. And I love to say it's like shining the light of truth on that belief, because once you actually look at it, you oftentimes realize how absolutely ridiculous and nonsensical it is. And that allows you in so many cases to just shift it right there. Sometimes there's a little bit deeper work that we have to do on some of our stuff, but a lot of the things that people have said to us, I mean, look around, look at your family, I mean, you're in business with your family. So you kind of all, grew together in that, right?
Well, so I'm only in business with a brother.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
We've got extended family and there's a lot of opinions, and we have learned politely that when you're at family events and they start talking to you about business, you get up, go grab a glass of wine, go try to start a conversation at some other side of the house, because you don't want those outside views. I'd go very far out of my way to surround myself with like-minded people that I highly respect in the business world, because it's hard. It's so easy for you to take somebody that you highly respect and take their opinion as your own, because you respect them so much. This happens to people's mothers and fathers all the time. I love my mother and father more than anything on earth. I talk to my mom once a day, no matter what. But she is the first to tell you, do not talk to me about business, because I don't know how you do what you do. It would stress me out. I'm like, I understand. That's why we don't talk about business.
Over the many years that I've been working with clients, I've had the question in a variety of different forms, but it always comes down to, do you have any friends anymore? Because I'm so different in the way that I think than average people think. And when they're kind of coming into my world, they're getting exposed to a very different way of thinking. They're no longer just surrounded by the people in their life with all of the limiting beliefs and all of the fears and kind of playing by the conventional, rules of life, play it safe. And I've noticed that, people really get tripped up on this whole piece about family, because when you start to think differently and be differently and create differently, there's a bit of a separation. And that's the other version of the question that I get is, what do you do with your family? Because a lot of times people have a lot of drama in their family, people who are very much naysayers, very living in scarcity and living in a lot of fear. And that's why it is so important to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people. And remember that as much as you can still love your family, but you just have to put up those boundaries. Doesn't mean you have to be rude about it, but you have to have some type of boundary in place.
And you don't have to share every moment of everything with everybody. So I put a perfect example. My brothers are very big sports people. My father's a very big sports thing. They have that in common. Me and my father have probably never spoken sports in the last 10 years. Well, you can do that with other parts of your life too. It's like, hey, business is an interest of mine. Business is not an interest of yours. So we're just not going to talk about that part. Like, of course, you can have a little chit chat if you want, but we're not going to get deep there. I'm going to hang out with you for the part of you that I love. And if you can do that, you get a lot better results. I've got buddies that they're horseback riding buddies. Once a year, we all meet together and we go horseback riding. And in that happens to be some of the best businessmen in the world. And we will talk business while we're there, but some of them aren't. And we don't talk business with those guys. So it's really just understand that you can be a well-rounded person but you have to make sure that you've got people feeding the different aspects of you.
Absolutely. I love that. Right there. That's the gold I was talking about. So I'd love to talk about how our listeners can connect with you, because you've shared a really incredible opportunity that I think might really resonate with some of our listeners.
The best way is mrca.net. On there, there's a button. If you want to invest with us, you can get quickly into our investor portal and start understanding more of how that works. If you want to see what we're doing and get better of explanation, that's on there. If you want to get a direct line phone call with me, there's a button on there that allows you to schedule a one-on-one with me. I'm willing to talk about anything. It doesn't have to be about our companies. It doesn't have to be about investing. It can be about a cookie recipe. We really, we've built our careers on sharing information and sharing what we have. So please, anybody who has questions there, reach out there. Also, if you follow us on LinkedIn, we put up a bunch of content on just random cool things that we're finding all the time. So that's MRCA on LinkedIn. There's just kind of a potpourri of just cool stuff that everybody in the company is finding awesome at that time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. This has been a really fun conversation. I think we shared a couple of golden nuggets and enlightened maybe a few people on some additional ways that they can grow their wealth.
Awesome. Thanks, Alicia.
And thank you to all of our listeners. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.